Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review is brought to you in part by Rogers Hobby Center in Saginaw, Michigan, where the fun begins.
This review covers Steve McGee's Black Beauty Dragster. It's a 125 scale kit, number 1214 from AMT. Taking its cues from funny car racers and others of the time, the Black Beauty incorporated an aerodynamic sophistication. It went so far as wrapping the exhaust pipes underneath the wedge-shaped body. Combined with great-looking graphics, it always attracted the crowds. The original Black Beauty kit was issued in 1974, and it's been put out several times since using the chassis and basic body with changes to the front nose. Now this kit comes from round 2 and was released in 2020. It consists of 90 parts molded in black, chrome, and clear with 2-piece pad-printed Goodyear slicks and some small, soft vinyl tires in the front. It's a skill level 2 for the intermediate builder, and when completed, the model is about 10.5 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 2.5 inches high. Well, that sounds like Newt tapping on the glass back there at the observation deck, and he's our program director. He's got a question. What's your question there, Newt?
Wow, that's a great-looking dragster. Is this a real one?
Oh, yeah. This was Steve McGee's rail back in the 80s, and he raced a lot of different classes, but this one was a real crowd pleaser.
So how fast did it go?
Well, these AA fuelers would regularly turn in times around 200 miles an hour, and I'm sure this was no exception. Oh, and here are the contents of the kit. It's a nice clean design, and as you can see, the frame is one-piece construction, which really simplifies it and keeps the problem of construction and warpage out of that area. Now, we'll be using mostly tube glue to make sure that we have time to adjust and make all of the parts fit together properly before the glue sets. And the decals are pretty impressive too. Look at those gorgeous purple flames. Also unusual for a dragster kit, the instrument panel decal there. Now, for the most part, everything's pretty much flat. And so normally I'd recommend some setting solutions, but I don't think you'll need them for this. You just have to be careful because the decals are pretty thin and they will roll over on you if you don't pull them off and install them properly. So now you can locate the parts for the engine, and as you can see, some are black, some are chrome. I'll also note that I'm going to replace the kit's distributor there with a pre-wired aftermarket magneto for a little more detailing, but that's a simple replacement. You just have to drill out those covers to put the spark plug wires through there. After assembling the basic block, I painted it a kind of a grape purple color to complement the body decals. And as you can see here, I also then, after the paint dried and assembled the basic thing, I scraped off the exhaust ports there so that I could glue the headers on there later. I painted the pulleys and the fuel pump aluminum, and the blower belt is flat black, and red was added to the butterflies in the blower scoop for some extra detailing. Now here you can see the aftermarket pre-wired magneto, which was painted aluminum, and the cap was painted flat black. And these are pretty easy to install because you just have to use a small drill bit or a pin vise to drill some holes in the top of the valve covers to insert the wires. As you can see here in the front view, it's a pretty impressive engine for your model. And in the back, you'll notice that the manifold is painted aluminum and the engine mounting plate is one-shot brand silver. That's number 193 to match the chassis. Locate these parts out of the kit to assemble the wheels, and they're a nice looking set of tires and wheels for your model. Now they should be the rear wheels should be pushed in separately, the inner and outers, and the inside face of the wheel back should be painted silver to match the rotor detail, which gets added later. And the front wire wheels can be glued together, but remember to scrape the chrome off of mating surfaces. And the tires can be just kind of rolled over those when the glue is set. In this step, you'll need to gather up all the parts for the lower half, including the front suspension and the cockpit area there and the roll cage. Now this is where it's really nice, because the complete chassis is easy to assemble because there's no alignment issues compared with most kits whose tube chassis frame sections are separate and have to be assembled at the ends. Now all the tube chassis will have some mold parting lines, so you'll need a light scrape with the X-Acto knife and maybe some sand sticks to clean those up. On the inside of the frame there are a couple of ejector pin marks. They're light, but you could clean those up along with the number there in case they could be seen at different angles from above. I've found it effective to drill out the hole there at the end of the steering link for attachment. Also remember to scrape that plating away for gluing. The arrow points to the place where the tie rod is glued to a small pin there, so that's where you'll attach that. The chassis has a plate to locate the front axle, and here's the front suspension, and that makes attaching the axle easier than some dragster models. The radius rods don't have locating marks on the sides of the chassis, so they should be kind of trial fitted into place, and then you can scrape the paint from where they are attached before gluing. And now get the parts out for the headers, and as you can see here, the one on the left is completed, and then the pieces for the other header are shown. Now note the arrows where they're pointing at the header flanges, and they have a front and rear mounting location on the heads, and since the tubes mount at a slight rearward angle, make sure to assemble the headers correctly. I found it easier to assemble them first and then paint them all in one piece. Also, like chrome plating, you have to scrape the paint off before you glue surfaces or it won't stick. The headers then get mounted after the engine is installed in the completed chassis. And the headers tubes there, they have a small amount of mold parting line that you'll want to scrape off and clean up first. At this point, you can see the frame was painted silver, as we mentioned, and then after that was dried, you can add the chute pack to the back and assemble the rear suspension. And now I painted that housing purple to kind of match the engine. And then once that's done, there's no marking on the chassis for the engine plate, so mark up the installation there and locate that by using the rear end mount. And then scrape the paint on top of the chassis rail and then the underside of the engine plate for assembly. Make sure that the engine dries in proper position, perpendicular to the horizontal frame there. And then once that's done, you can add the headers, as we talked about earlier. Then the completed headers, they get installed there, and once they are dry, here is the roll cage that you can install. And then the bucket in there, of course, the seat, and the steering column has some wooden grips on it, and that's up to you as far as detailing goes. I really didn't find too many internet pictures of this unit, so you just use your best judgment and come up with something artistic like this, and you'll have a fine looking display even in that area. And the detail on the dash panel is pretty good, the gauge detail, but I found just sanding the gauges off flat and then adding this decal that was provided to give the nicest look. So note that steering wheel grips, as I mentioned, they're painted wood tones. And you'll see here painted orange and silver, the dual oil filters. They get added to the chassis there, and there was a Fram decal on it, the body, so I painted it Fram orange color. And now we can complete that chassis by adding the wheels to the front suspension. Also note there, just to the right of this photo, the fuel tank is sitting inside the frame there, so that gets mounted into position. And here you see the rear tires are added as well, and the completed frame is looking pretty nice all by itself. Now, we've also got some interior detail shots here that shows the fuel tank up front, accelerator pedal, clutch pedal, a fire bottle, and the handbrake and the steering wheel, all painted in colors that you'd see are typical. Here you see in the back end, note the disc brakes there. The rotors are painted silver and the calipers are steel color. And also note there's some small holes drilled in the ends of the header tubes with a little flat black painted there for detailing. Now it's time to get the upper body pieces out of the kit, and I assembled all three of these pieces together before painting to make a one-piece body assembly that I could just remove in one piece to show the frame and chassis underneath. Then after light sanding and priming, I used some one-shot brand black, it's a gloss black, that's number 199, and airbrushed the body with that. There really then were no mold lines or sink marks to fix on this, so it was pretty nice. I applied the decals after the paint was thoroughly dried, and as I mentioned, these are thin, so hold the trailing edge down and then slide the paper out on the other side and keep it in place so that it doesn't start to roll over. Use plenty of warm water and put them into position where they need to go, and they should adhere pretty well. After the decals have dried overnight, you can attach the windshield with a little white glue or crystal clear and put that into position. Here are the pieces I had left over. Most of these are from different versions of the kit and some decals that are used for those. So you'll use all the pieces you need for yours, but these will just be spares. Well, there you have it. Your model is complete. And with the body in place, I had left it unattached so it could be removed to see the chassis. And I found that this was easier to assemble than most other dragster kits. Semi-completed frame is a big help because there's no alignment problems. And the front axle is easily mounted to the front wheels, and there's a pretty solid unit. In the instructions, the wedge is glue optional for the wedge body, but mine had a slight warp, so I glued it all together to straighten that out and also make sure that it all came off in just one piece. Now you can lift the whole body off there and see the details of the chassis. Aside from that, this was an easy builder, and I'd recommend it for anyone who wants to begin building dragsters as an excellent kit to start with. So, if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. I hope you liked this premium step-by-step model kit review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the icon in the lower right of any of our reviews. You could also find us on Facebook or our website, rightonreplicas.com. Thanks.